Started. All right, so I'm going to call to order the April 14th meeting of the Planning Advisory Commission for Mason County. I'm right. If you could please do roll call.
Will Harris,
I'm here.
Bob Wilkerson is excused, Jeff Carey,
Here.
Joel Galbraith is also excused, Randy Lewis,
Here.
Mike Hill,
Here.
and Brad Carver.
We have 5 out of 7, so we do have a quorum. Thank you. Has everyone had a chance to review the agenda, and are there any suggested changes that any commissioners would recommend?
I have.
I'll make the motion to approve the agenda. Do I hear a second?
No,
No, they can fight over it.
But you can have the floor.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes, agenda is approved. Is any of the commissioners here, do you have any conflict of interest or any of the topics being discussed this evening?
Nope.
Nope. Hearing none. Next meeting is on the 28th of April. Staff will discuss what is going to be involved in that in their updates. Meeting and staff updates. So with that, staff.
So right now for April 28th, we are advertising review of the transportation element as well as the land use element. And then SCJ is giving a progress, a progress to date of the climate policy equity team work. So I'm advertising that because hopefully we won't have to drop anything, but I'd rather advertise more because we have to advertise it in order to talk about it. So I have those 3 for April 28th. Hopefully we can talk about those 3.
Absolutely.
The other thing I was going to mention, because we had to drop capital facilities for this meeting, is proposing another possible date. And I know no one wanted to do a back-to-back. But if we do a back-to-back, June most likely won't have any meetings because that would be the month that SCJ would have to be compiling everything for our deliverable commerce. So I'm suggesting May 12th for capital facilities, and I know we have already another meeting scheduled for May 19th, the week after, to review the full draft.
Couple of questions. Do we need a decision tonight or can it wait until the 28th? Does that give you enough time to do the notifications that you would need to do?
I would need notice to the paper by 5 p.m. on Monday the 20th.
That won't work. We don't meet till 6. Thank you, though. That answers the question. All right. Right now, we have one meeting in May scheduled on the 19th. And Monday, the 26th is Memorial Day, so there is not an in my mind, postponing one, moving one to the 26th. Amy's got one.
Think it can make it. The 12th of May.
I'm okay with the 12th.
So we had the 12th and the 19th?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only 2 in the month, but they're back to back.
Yeah, I was like on the spot.
That's tentative because I'm still getting confirmation from the consultants, but I wanted to talk to you guys about it.
Yeah.
I know that wasn't a preferred, but I'm hoping if we do that, we most likely wouldn't have a meeting in June.
Well, I know it's also not preferred from a staff perspective, so there's multiple not prefers here, so. But Brad, I think you're a no, got 3 yeses. So, let's,
Oh, no, I did shake my head, but no, I thought there was. No, there's.
no conflict.
I don't have with the health.
Okay, so it would work. Okay. Go. So just give me a heads up once you know a little more, and we can coordinate that real quick, and then otherwise this question segment, you guys ready? All right,
You got that, Cindy.
that's it, okay? Any commissioners with any updates?
None for me.
Okay. Just so you all know, I did attend out of my own desire, the city of Shelton comprehensive plan meeting last week. They were discussing the economic development element for the city of Shelton. And I said nothing. I said hello to people, sat down, and then left at the end. So I didn't, there was no speaking part. What I saw though, I liked. And specifically, the element as they discussed it. And what we've drafted, or what's been drafted for the county, and what has been aligned with the EDC Economic Vitality Plan. All three are aligned with ideas of how do we help and promote our existing businesses? How do we help and, grow, workers and educate workers, and all those elements that we talked about. So that's really good. So just to let you know that from my perspective, that was one very positive thing that I saw there. Oh, good, it appears to be a teaming effort. So, all right. All right. We have no other business, so we'll move on to public comment. So this is the time, everyone, that hold on, Jacob, we'll get to you. This is it's a public comment period for items not on the PAC agenda. So on the PAC tonight is the utilities element. And so utilities ones can wait. So we will take public comment. I ask that total time is 15 minutes. It is 3 minutes, up to 3 minutes per person. I ask that all speakers specifically address the PAC. This is not an opportunity to address other members of the public. It's an opportunity to address the 5 of us sitting here at this table. Please start by providing your name and generally where you live. I don't want your address. Do not state your address, but you live in Shelton or Hoodsport or wherever. Sort of knowing where you live in the county helps us as planning advisory commission members to better understand the situation and where your comments might be coming from. So with that, anyone have a comment? Mr. Ackley.
Jacob Ackley, Arcadia area. First, I'd like to say thank you for the PAC on making and keeping the PAC meetings more civil. It allows us to be able to tell you what we think and give our opinions. And it allows you to actually focus on what we're saying. So thank you for that. Second, I was wondering about the public works building because I'm kind of, so that building was actually very nice and I wouldn't mind going back there. It was actually preferable because I have more space and in general, I think it's a little more comfortable. I also liked being able to actually see all your faces and actually being able to talk to you more directly. And I think that would help with the public comment. I know it was a lot bigger, so the public comment was more quieter. So I'm wondering if we'll ever go back to that. And yeah.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Ackley. Yes, sir.
I just what I live in my focus neighborhood. I just wanted to say that thank you, Will, for coming to the comprehensive plan steering committee meeting because I think it's important to be able to be open to all different perspectives and realize that since it's the Sheldon comprehensive plan and the Mason County comprehensive plan, they kind of need to mesh together well and make sure that we're on the same page. And I do really appreciate you for that. I did also want to acknowledge, especially with this element, that it is important to listen to and compare and contrast from the Sheldon plan and the Mason County plan. Also, this is kind of for everyone. I just wanted to say that I think it's important to look forward and like think about how old we'll be in 10 years and how the people that live in Mason County that you love and care about will be in 10 years and how they might be affected by these things. So like, I'll be 26.
It's enough out of you. Yes, young man.
I also wanted to say that, I think it's important that you did go to, the Shelton comp plan meeting because you get to see different perspectives and, I think that's especially important because, you guys are here to represent Mason County and the people that live in it. Make sure everyone's right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Porter. Mr. Ramirez.
My name is Alan Ramirez. I live in the Shelton area. I wanted to say, I do think it is a good point to make that, I think the PAC and the city steering committee should try to work a little bit closer together so that these comp plans so that they can mesh together as well as possible. Because you don't wanna have your county saying, we wanna reduce, we wanna make sure that people are able to live out in the county, or very rural areas, for example, then have the city say, something completely different. So I think it's good that, members of the PAC are going to these city steering committees, just so that they can both sort of see where, the ideas lie. And I guess that as a technicality, I guess you also have somebody from the steering committee coming to the PAC meetings, so. I think it's a really good relationship to build between both the county and the city, so that these two plans can sort of coincide. Also, would just like to throw out there the idea of reducing sprawl. Which I know it's a very difficult balance to have between reducing sprawl and allowing people to live out rurally, because that's why a lot of people like this county. They like to live out with their nice plot of land, you get a nice view of the forest. But I think it is important to recognize that a lot of people kind of need the sprawl to be reduced. Because as I think will become evident, especially with the topic being discussed today, the reduction in sprawl is going to have a huge effect, especially in the next 20 years, on the county's population, on the health of the population of the county overall. I think that's important to keep in mind. Try to make sure that every single element in this comp plan tries to reduce sprawl while still allowing people to have the freedom to live where they choose. So.
Thank you, Mr. Ramirez.
I'm Mimi Smith. I live in Shelton uphill. And one thing the last time I was here, it was about the housing and climate change issue we were discussing. And I still think it's really important to keep that like in our heads, and especially with what Alan said, reducing sprawl could help with the housing issue, but unfortunately, the budget's not, it's over, it's cut, frankly, so.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Anyone else have a public comment? All right, I'm gonna go to the Zoom room. Is there anyone in the Zoom room that would like to make a public comment to the Planning Advisory Commission on something not on the agenda this evening? If so, raise your hand in Zoom space. I don't see any. Okay, seeing none. Anyone else in the room? All right, we'll close public comment. Thank you. All right, we are going to move on to our work section tonight. This is on the utilities element, and we'll start with a staff presentation. I do want to recognize, while we have our standard staff members in the room, along with Mr. Murray, our county administrator, we also have the chief of public works, who's hiding behind Brad over there, Loretta Swanson, and just to pick on age, we were classmates at St. Martin's back in the day. So what was that? 4 years ago, 4 years ago, something like that. Four years were involved. Anyway, so with that on utilities, let's go to the staff presentation. And I'm Kel, unless there's an objection, I'm gonna leave that open, not only to you, but certainly Loretta to jump in at any time, however you guys wanna do that. So. Have anything from a staff perspective? Well, there we go. Thank you.
So we've already seen a schedule, Gary talked about things. Okay, move on from that. My idea for the meeting here is just to give an update on what's required and some of the information that we have received so far. Like I noted in the staff report, the consultant is still gathering some data from some of the service providers. I was gonna mention some of the information that they are still seeking out. Then I was thinking about stopping at that moment, and if the PAC has any questions for Public Works or any of the other representatives that are online or in the room, that would be the time to ask them. And then it might be good to go to public comments before we start the discussion on, just so you guys can be thinking of the public comment once we start to go to the discussion of maybe the goals and the policies after that. And we can bring the goals and policies up before we work through that. If that
Nice,
sounds
thank you.
okay?
Yep.
Okay. So chapter 9 utilities, 3 general requirements for that chapter, and that is the general location of the utilities, proposed location if planning on expanding in the future, and then the capacity of the existing and the proposed. One of the other proposals that the consultant has, and what some other jurisdictions do, is combine their capital facilities chapter and their utilities chapter, because there's a lot of overlap between the two topics. So that was one of the proposals that they wanted us to discuss and get feedback on, whether that was desired. It might help us not to replicate the same information in the capital facilities and utilities chapter, and not have to much that not as many places to check for the same information and updating. Some of the information that's still pending in the draft that you received is information on natural gas, our solid waste tonnage, so some information on recycling and some forecasted needs and capacity information. Also, the water system, so public health, getting updated numbers from the public health department on connections. And so the consultant is following up on that, and it will also be coming additional consultant to follow with that for public works. Some of the information that was provided to us, we had public, the PUD 1 and 3 provide us some updates and in the draft, and I just wanted to highlight some of those. We have approximately 5,667 customers, and that's up from the last plan. They indicated 4,770. And then they had a number on their kilowatt hours sold in 2019 compared to what was sold in 2024. A 6% increase on kilowatt hours. And then they show the fuel mix for their electricity generation. And most of that is hydroelectric. And then PUD 3, 36,000 for 100 customers, and that's compared to 33,000 that was noted in the last comp plan in 2017. And then their kilowatt hours, 2016 was 610 million to 681 million kilowatt hours. And you can see their fuel mix there in that pie graph as well, and it's mostly hydroelectric as well. Doing for a little bit of wind, unspecified. Natural gas, this section is still pending information, but, this is the map on the screen there is from the 2017 comp plan update, and that was their service area at that time. 2,300 customers, Cascade Natural Gas and 30 million cubic feet in monthly. Hood Canal communication updates. Now, you won't see this in your packet. I was given, the PAC members probably have it, but the public probably doesn't have it because I received it on Friday. They updated their numbers. They have 9,930 business and residential customers compared to the 8,500 in the last version. And then they updated the map too of all the areas that they serve, and this is where they serve cable broadband and fiber to homes. And I believe it was, I think they have $20 million to fund expansion services in more rural areas. And that will be that's noted in the new draft. Fiber optics, PVD3 updated this information, and they are up to 4,000 customers with fiber optic and 777 miles. They have their fiber hood connections, and they have 80 neighborhoods now that are connected, and they have 24 that are in the construction phase right now connected to fiber. They also get a lot of funding through grants and loans through different boards, service served in Washington State Qualified Office and this rural utility services. On-site sewage system, so the numbers you have in your draft are not current, so the consultants will be reaching out to the public health to update those numbers. In the last version of 25,000, noted 25,000 on-site sewage across county. And then our 2 sites that accept from the Shelton wastewater plant and biological site on North Ranch. Solid waste, still pending some information, but you can see here's some of the current information from 2023 and 2024 on total tonnage of solid waste exported for land disposal, what was collected from through recycling, and then that per capita generated, tons per capita generated. So they're following up on what some of those numbers were for 2022, 2022, and hopefully get some information on the forecast for solid waste. Water, the information in the draft has the 2027 connection numbers, and we should also have some new numbers, especially since there was a lot of work done on watershed areas in the county. So we should have updated numbers on wells, and we also have projected water demand numbers that will be updated as well. For this meeting, hopefully we can focus. I know that there's a lot of information that still needs to be inputted into the draft from some of our service providers. But there are some goals and policies that we can focus on. And they're pretty general right now. The consultant pulled in some boilerplate policies from some other plan examples because the current draft didn't have any policies or goals in there. So this would be the time to start refining those. And then at this point, I want to stop And we have, if the PAC has any questions for service providers or other staff members, this would be the time to do that.
So in the room, we also have Dustin from PUD 3. So we do have a PUD service provider here. Obviously, we have Swanson from Public Works. Do any of you have questions for staff or anything specific for a service provider? I guess the question I have is with regards to the different systems, once you get down to individual wells, I'm assuming we may note them, but they're more grouped together. They're not individually listed. Okay, good. I got y'all doing the heads going up and down, so that's good. And then with regards to water systems, will all of the water systems be listed? I guess educate me a little bit so I can understand what to look for and not look for.
That's a good question, because I know, from the bit that I was involved in some water data collection, it is very difficult to identify all of them. And so I'm not sure if the last comp plan even identified all of the Class A water systems.
They didn't want to list them, no.
Yeah,
They were not listed.
Yeah, so it'll be a broader sense of, and then definitely when it comes down to the individual exempt wells, those are, those will not be identified other than maybe a broad number. Or approximate number.
You're biting.
I know. Cal, one thing, my understanding is that we might need to change the definition from exempt to the code. I think they use as PE. The reason is exempt deals with water rights, if I remember correctly, and not the size of the well, or whether it's a single party or public or anything. It's whether it has water rights.
Yes, permit exempt, but in the permit exempt, you are correct. There is single connection, two-party well, and Class Bs, which are also permit exempt, but they are maybe public water systems.
Right, and it just.
And then the Class As have the
Right.
permits.
Definition, all I'm saying is for cleaning up the definition so people know.
Oh, is that not?
It's not clear, but that's okay.
Okay, that's a good note.
And then the second thing is, just as I don't know if you recall or not, but there was a Mott McDonald report for Wire 14 done.
Yep.
And that had a lot of. numbers.
Yeah. And that is what that the consultants will get those updated numbers that they did not do in this draft.
Yeah, because I started looking at what the numbers there, and they weren't, really close.
The McDonald study you referenced.
It was the Department of Health did a Wire 14 study. It was titled Wire 14 Buildable Lands Analysis Relative to Wells and Water Systems. So, and Wire 14 is kind of basically not Hood Canal.
Okay.
Everything south almost, and I think, all the way to Kennedy Creek, all the way up to Allen. All the way to,
Yeah. So is it? Sewage systems are relatively few in the county. Electrical is basically 2 providers. Natural gas is 1. Telecommunications, we have 4 or 5, half dozen fish. It's not a huge list, but water, there's a lot of little water organizations out there. I mean, like Lakeland Village is one I'm aware of. I've been doing the Shorebrook Association with under a couple hundred connections. And will those be included in this, or do we know at this time? I mean, it's more than a 2-party. It has, 100+ connections. Good question.
So
Well,
Be
I'm,
a total of
They'd be under,
class A and how many.
they'll be under the group
It's
A.
Not listing.
They'll be under the group A list, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Group A, you said?
Yeah, it's not class, it's groups. So group A, B.
Are you all aware of the Department of Health Office of Drinking Water Century database? I thought they're all listed there.
There's some errors in there.
What?
There's some errors in there. But that's a hard one to pull from, at least on the outside.
Pretty easy to pull from.
If I may,
absolutely.
I did provide a database dump to the consultant for,
You what?
I did provide a database dump from Century to the consultants for the group A and group B systems.
Yeah, I mean, they can do it themselves, public information,
Yes.
tell them the website.
Right.
I asked
Yeah,
another
no, go ahead.
question.
No, absolutely, no.
So,
This is
just-
staff time, so jump in, please.
Yeah, just to throw it back to you, what would that information, how would that information be useful to you or the citizens in determining whether we're meeting growth projections and requirements? Certainly, it's an inventory,
Right.
but the assessment side, how would that be useful to you and what would that look like?
What it would look like is, one of the requirements is to, what do we have by utility? Who is the provider? What is their capacity today? What is their projected growth? So sort of what's in their capital facilities plan, whether that's PUD or Mason County or Lakeland Village or whoever it is providing a utility. And then what is the projected growth in that area? And so we have basically housing broke out by UGAs, and rural is more complicated because they're very, very broad. But particularly for the UGAs, if we see, if there is a significant, we see growth, but there's not capacity and there's not something planned, then that would be a flag at this point to say, what, could that potentially be a barrier down the road that once we get to a certain population, we might have to then potentially limit growth? Am I getting this right, Kel? Okay, good. Yeah, so that's the intent here, is to start to understand where, we have so many potential obstacles. And, this is simply the utilities. We'll look at transportation here in a couple of weeks, and we'll take that to tip cap also. And, but that's what we're looking at, is simply, it's like sewage. What is the capacity of sewage today as we're operating, say, North Bay? What if we expand the cells in North Bay? And simply understanding that. So and at what point is the plant truly capped out?
Sure. So for water systems, if you had a list, I'm talking water system specific. You have a laundry list of every group A system, and it says maybe we're approved up to 400 connections, and right now today we have 380. Usually those water systems have a very specific service area, like a subdivision or a development. And there's only so many lots that are already existing that you plug into. So either they can serve or they can't, given what their capacity is. And then often if they can't, then somebody can have the option to say, is there another surrounding water system that can serve? If the answer is no, then can I drill a well? So that's the next thing, if you can physically site one. So typically there's capacity in some shape or form to serve, with few exceptions. Would you agree, Jeff?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. To
So
me-
I
to
guess
me-
that's where I'm
yeah.
getting at. That's a lot of effort to include a laundry list of every water system and every, what their capacity is and what their approved connections are. So maybe a narrative to that effect, like what the process is, I guess.
I guess I'm gonna go back, if I may, just
Go ahead.
Cal, I'm not, that sounds reasonable. I'm just looking at the requirement as presented, in the utility zone, what the expectations are. So if it varies a little system by system for, basically. I can drill, a well can be drilled somewhere in the county and we can get water. We just can't plug into another, electric provider anywhere in the county. So maybe the utilities are slightly different in expectations, and I'm looking to you for that advice.
They are very different, and I think it's important to look at the 3 urban growth areas and those water system plans and really what the, general capacity is and what the 20-year future growth is expected for each one of those UGAs. The rural area is going to end up getting served by the permit exempt wells under the existing process that we have in place
Okay.
for people to connect outside the water service area. So I guess we can talk with the consultants on how to address that clearly in this plan.
Yeah, if you had something.
And I was just kind of along those lines saying that, we have the different areas, but, the 3 UGAs are the primary one. And at least what was outlined to us was basically okay, what do we, but, more of an executive summary is the way I was looking at it. What do we have? What are we capable of doing, right, today? And then giving our population allocations. What are we gonna need to do in the future?
Yeah.
This case in point, like Lakeland, they have a water system 900 some odd. But they're only approved to 900 some odd, so they need to update the plan to go back into the state and get capacity. I don't know, I know they have water rights, a lot of them, but I don't know to what extent are being used for, between the golf course and residential. So, as an example, but to me, it was like big picture summary, executive summary of the different key 3 things that were laid out here in our first paragraph or 2.
Well, and I sort of see this as, what can we do today? What's our capacity? What's our demand today? What's our potential future demand? And what are our expected projects? Recognizing some may be a decade out and not yet funded. Okay, so there's some unknown here, but almost sort of a red, yellow, and green. Sort of a red, yellow, just a stoplight charted of green. Hey, we think even with the growth, the capacity exists today, we're very close. Yellow, we think we're gonna outgrow existing capacity, but there's plans in place. Yeah, there's funding somewhere down the road. Red, we got a big problem. Basically there's a gap and there's not necessarily a plan in place. That's almost, because with something like that, I think any reader could sort of very quickly say, hey, overall, electric and natural gas appear to be fine and water is fine, but, sewer, for example, is a gap, and I'm totally making this up here. So I don't know what the facts will drive it, but that's sort of, I think that would be helpful for a reader
No,
something
we're
like.
supposed to be doing this for the citizens.
Yeah, no,
So that they kind of know what's going on in the community going forward.
Stop like that. Randy, you've been quiet over there. Anything?
I'm a quiet guy.
Okay.
I'll leave it to you experts to
Brad?
discuss.
Mike? Mhm.
Well, I mean, just listening to this, it seems to me that the majority of the growth is gonna be in the urban growth areas. And those are gonna be vastly public services, right? I mean, they're not gonna be, then, so if you take a rural water system that has, say, 500, existing connections and they have a capacity for 600, when they reach that capacity, then they're done. Unless they apply for,
It depends 2 levels. One, if they have the water rights to apply.
yeah,
And that's getting tough.
but that's beyond our scope.
Yeah, yeah.
Seems to me. So we're just looking at the UGAs and what's going on there.
And just big picture in my
Right.
mind, all
Yeah.
4 areas really.
And we are making the assumption that assumption has been made across the comprehensive plan that the growth that people will make decisions to move to the UGAs and not to the rural areas, recognizing that we have individual property rights and our decisions are decisions.
And we haven't hit that target.
Yeah, I know, and as you brought up, that has been a little problematic, but we are focused on that line. So there. Okay. Anything else from the table? So I do want to, Justin, you are in the room from PUD3. Is there anything specifically you want as a utility provider you want to let us know from your perspective? Because he and I talked briefly before the meeting and he helped put together some of the information we've read on PUD3.
I have some questions in that, yeah.
Okay, well, we'll get into the details, but we have a utility provider here, so someone must know them. Anything you want to?
Yeah, PUD3 has done a deep dive on the utilities element as we do each time this comes around and provided thorough comments to Marissa. Thank you for including them. I see that they were included here in the presentation. These young people spoke really well. Rural sprawl is a major issue that PUD3 faces. We have the assumption that folks are going to build in the urban growth areas, but that's not in fact what we're seeing in Mason County. In fact, our rural substations, Pioneer Substation, Benson Substation are two examples that are at capacity, full capacity at just half of their intended life. That's because folks are not building higher density, multifamily, missing middle housing in the Shelton, Allen, and even Belfair areas, mostly in Shelton, to be frank. And so they're spreading out, and that's causing a lot of load spread along the lines, which increases outage opportunities, it increases energy losses. It requires more system hardening for improvement on serving those folks. And so our comments really do focus on saying, how can we break down barriers and how can we really encourage and incentivize folks to build in the urban growth areas within the city of Shelton, specifically Shelton urban growth areas, to increase, like I said, missing middle and higher density housing. So this is a general statement that we have.
Thank you. All right, anything you wanted to add at this point? Okay. Glad I'd asked. All right. So unless there's a question here, let's go ahead and open that up for public comment on the utility system. You have any more? Okay, there's not a hand moving. Don't want to miss you. And so what we'll do is similar 3 minutes per person up to that point. We'll focus on utilities. Please focus your questions towards the members of the PAC, not the fellow members in the audience. And with that, is there anyone in the room that would like to make the public comment on utilities? Yes, Ms. Smith.
So I was told by one of the other members of our group that there was an outage, I think, at the wastewater treatment plant. Because I mean, the equipment there is kind of, it's old, I think. And I'm just wondering, is there a way to get, would getting newer, more functional equipment lower costs in the long run?
Okay, thank you. Just a minute. Trying to take a note. We'll take Mr. Ackley. I think you were the first up there. Oh, we'll jump up to.
Already up there.
We'll get to Mr. Porter next. Mr. Ackley.
Okay, Jacob Ackley, Arcadia. First thing I was gonna say is I've heard there's a lot of lead poisoning, I think, in Shelton and in Arcadia. A lot of issues I've noticed with public utilities are out in, or at least for me, as I deal with, we do get power outages in my area more frequently than I think other areas. And that a lot of that's due to wind. I guess one thing I put in is making sure that the repairs get done quickly. And that, like, I know for if you're like in a very rural area, you live very far away, repairs can take quite a while. And I know for a lot of people, they rely on power constantly to keep like their stuff frozen.
Thanks for sharing. If I may pause just for 1 minute. Because it was a public health comment and there was a comment about lead poisoning in the water. I just want to verify that all water systems are appropriately and properly tested per our health. If anything pops, there's public notices, there's I see Mr. Neary is in here, his head going up and down, so I feel.
They're permitted, I mean, they have to turn in
Yeah,
testing to all the class A systems,
Class A, correct.
or group A, I guess we should call it.
and would that include the area serving Arcadia? Do you know, if you don't know, you don't know, that's
Yeah,
fine.
there's pretty multiple systems
Okay.
out there. And keep in mind too, that lead, the system itself might be completely fine, the distribution system. We are just sending out surveys right now, but there may be older home construction that in the pipe that's on the personal property contains lead, whether it's the connections for the plumbing or elsewise. So it's not always just the water system.
It's not the
itself.
provider necessarily, it could be
Yeah, it could be
internal
a
to my
combo.
home.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, but I just, because it's public health and we have some folks in the room may not have background, there certainly is a testing of water on a periodic basis and different chemicals or bacteria are different, tested at different periodicities, different lengths of time to ensure that the water we drink is safe in a public system. So I suspect we're okay, but there is a way to verify that. All right. Mr. Porter.
I'm very supportive again. So. This may seem minor, but it's just a little thing. I think it was, it was the last part of the element. So our school and the Sheldon School District, has a lot of Wi-Fi issues. And I think if we had faster Wi-Fi connection, then it would make the teaching, learning and, like the experience, better and easier to have. And, since a lot of things rely on Wi-Fi that we do in school now, sometimes the Wi-Fi will go out, so we can't do much of anything all day. So I was just, wondering if you guys could check on, those. The Wi-Fi or something.
Mr. Porter.
You want me to speak to this?
Oh, we got multiple hands.
No, we'll talk later.
How about
I got you.
Mr. Lynx? You're behind, so I had to stand up and go, I could see a tuft of hair in the hand, so.
Linda Link, intro. I read the packet that we got sent in the mail, and I'm curious as to why SCJ can't update us. If there's an information in there for waste utilities that says 2 years, 2 years ago, we changed companies completely from the Roosevelt landfill in Eastern Washington to one in Cowlitz County 2 years ago, and they haven't even bothered to put that in there. It's kind of disappointing.
Right, thank you, Ms. Lynch. Yes, ma'am.
On our communication, I just wanted to, like, agree with what Alan said about how, it does make it difficult for, when people live like farther out from Skelton or like stuff like that, it does seem to make it difficult for people to have like electricity and all that. And uh yeah.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Recently, I do wanna, we agree with what Jacob Ackley said, and as also, Alon said. As somebody who has lived out like in the farther areas of Mason County, when, weather stuff happened and power outages happened, it took a couple hours, and that's bars of my day where I was in the area where I needed that power to like function, do stuff. It really messed up my day. There, I don't know if you guys could do this, but maybe help work on like a way to track weather conditions, like a forecast or something, just to maybe be like a bit prepared for that on a specific day. It says like, there's a chance for like like a thunderstorm to happen, be like, oh, we should probably maybe on high alert for reports on that day. If that's already happening, that's good. That's kind of all I wanted to say. It'd be really benefit people in town and farther out of town in Mason County. Just as a whole, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mill. George.
Hi, my name is Kirsty Rose. I live over near Lake Limerick. I just want to address under the goals, the goal 944 affordable utility access. It's my opinion that I believe that this section needs to be elaborated on, because I think it's really important to make sure that in the discussion of expansion of utilities, that we're also taking into account that we need to not be impacting the people in our county's monthly utility bills. I've heard from multiple people, and I'm sure we've all seen on the Shelton Talks page and the Facebook groups that people are complaining about extreme rises in their power bills. I know that I've faced, I have an $80 to $90 increase this year on my power bill. And I know that I live rural. I know that there is some expansions going on, like the PUD substation, PUD 3 substation that had some catastrophic failures this year as a result of natural disasters. I think it's important to try to protect our residents from having to incur these unexpected costs of the expansion and plan for future expansion and funding for the future expansion, whether that's grants, state and federal funding. There has to be some way to help protect our residents from facing the impact of this. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Hurst. Mr. Ramirez in the back, will come up front, one row.
Hello, Alan Ramirez, live in the Shelton area. And I just wanted to say that I think not only is it an issue of reducing sprawl, but I do know that at least I know personally from personal experience that PUD 3 is very good at sort of trying to help keep costs low for people who are really just truly struggling with paying off their bills. So I wanted to say that I think it would be nice if the county tried to work a little bit closer together with all of these different service providers, especially the ones that are out in more rural areas, so that it's easier for not only the county to keep all of its residents happy, but also for the service providers to be able to do what they have to do out in the county, so that they're not, I guess, slowed down by certain regulations that maybe are not as good for our county specifically. So I don't know exactly what that would look like, but I think it would be a good thing for the PAC to discuss tonight on what kind of policies would allow for all of these service providers to have an easier time, not only expanding their services, but also an easier time sort of preparing for in case of natural disasters, which is something that I hadn't even thought of before. But I do think that it's important to keep natural disasters in mind, especially things like strong winds knocking trees down. And during heat waves, I'm sure that could also have some like the fire that we have over by McCleary. That I think that was also probably something that maybe could have not been avoided, but something that the county could have done a better job at sort of preventing the damages that would occur from that. So sort of like if you know that the summer is going to be very dry, having some sort of way that these service providers have like the county can give them a heads up being like, hey, you're probably gonna end up having to go out there and fix a lot of power lines, a lot of damaged power lines. So I don't know if that would look like the county opening up a new department. I don't know if exactly the comp plan can do that. But I do think it would be nice if the county could try to do a lot more sort of preventive work. Or work to try to reduce the damages caused by things that we know we can't stop, but we know that we can reduce the damages caused by it.
Yes, ma'am. And Mr. Rivera.
Hi, I'm Oliver Easton. I live over by the Fall Lake area. I would like to second on, Araceli's, point of there being electricity costs and the electricity costs and the power outages. When you live in an area that's like kind of almost out of town, it's really hard when you have both internet issues and the cost of your electricity going up. My family has to pay day by day for our electricity now. And as well as my internet keeps going out. And with the high winds, it knocks down a lot of trees and it's really hard to get out and into town from there. That's all.
Thank you, Ms. Deason. Anyone else in the room? Don't see any other hands in the room. So is there anyone in Zoom space that has a public comment for the PAC on with regards to the utilities element? Please raise your hand. Or if you or come off and mute. I'm seeing none. This Ryan is confirming. That's good. Anyone else in the room with a public comment for the PAC? All right, seeing none, we are going to close public comment. All right, gentlemen, it is time for us to and if I may, thinking let's start with where staff sort of suggested, and that is specifically with what I would propose is discuss capital facilities element and utilities element, merge them and keep them separate, and then go into sort of a high level look at the utilities element and then step into goals and policies and really focus the bulk of time on that latter goals and policies. So that sounds good. No one's disagreeing. Does anyone have a thought then on the, should the capital facilities and utilities merge into one element? Should they be kept separate?
I think it's more efficient to merge them, less costly than that. That's a good idea.
If you're going to merge them, the ones that have capital facilities, i.e. like the county portions, like the sewer and some of the water systems and what have you. We need some mechanism or way designated report, like you see such and such, or more of a reference by. So we're not
Yes, but
misstating.
if we merge, everything becomes one.
Okay, total merger, yeah.
Yeah, what I would throw out is actually keep them separate, but in the facilities, take all the utilities in the facilities element. So all the county water,
Right.
the county sewer, the county solid waste, those things that we see in the SIP, put them into the utilities. So all utilities in one spot. In the capital facilities element, you simply say, when it comes down to sewer, it says see utilities, and that's it. We just point them over, everything's stated once. We then protect, because I agree with Kel. Double writing it twice is only an opportunity to have an oversight.
I'm not for writing it twice. My concern is that we have an annual review at capital facilities. So when I have an annual, would you jump into utilities?
No, the SIP and the comp plan are separate.
Yeah, no. I'm trying to figure out, how this is gonna work.
Separate them. So the SIP has everything. The SIP,
I
yes,
just want
ma'am.
to say no.
Yeah.
Huh?
I don't think that's a good idea.
What?
I don't think you're talking about just having a capital facilities plan that has what, a reference to parks, that has parks and admin and county buildings, and that's it.
Okay, you don't like that. Okay. So combine it all or keep them separate as is.
That would be preferable.
So,
I like the concept. But this high level, we're seeing all these things. Everyone has the same, I think, goal. Like there should be some way to, everything should be connected. I'm not articulating it very well, but you know, there's growth here, but it affects all aspects, utilities, sewer, whatever. I like them combined somehow, so we know the common basis that affects each of them. I see glazed eyes, so I'm not
No,
really explaining it all.
Yeah. So I think all utilities in one spot is a good idea. That's sort of how I feel. But I don't believe that adding parks and administrative buildings into the utilities necessarily makes sense. I understand that, yeah, staff disagrees with that. That's fine. And well, I'm saying something wrong, jump in. Mark, you're smiling.
Because I think that the idea here is if you combine them together, you have capital facilities and utilities together, right? So everything would be covered under the capital facility section. And the utility section would be referencing the capital. Like with the capital facilities. That's what you're saying.
I've seen some jurisdictions put both elements together. Capital facilities and utility.
And they talk about capacity, they talk about all that.
Yes.
yeah, so the financing part, which we had typically annually review, how would you see that working?
That's not part of the comp plan.
No, no. I understand that, but I'm saying. We're taking a document that's loaded one way that we annually review. And now you're merging other stuff into it.
No. The comp plan,
The CIP would still work the same way. You're doing 6-year financing for the projects that the towns in this.
Okay, fine, okay.
that's,
I just want to make sure we're not mucking it up.
no, the SIP process stands alone.
Okay, fine.
But you would have then a chapter that has county facilities, county parks, all utilities.
Yeah. Okay. If we still got the SIP thing, yeah, that's fine. That's my only concern. If you're grinding these things together and it's.
They're separate, correct?
The SIP is an appendix to, would be an appendix to capital facilities. If you're merged.
So.
Okay.
Yes, that would be updated annually.
Could you state that again, please?
So the CIP,
Okay.
the one we did last year would still be an appendix. It still covers the same facilities, services that it did prior.
Right.
So it's an appendix to, it would be an appendix to the capital facilities and utilities chapter.
And address county,
County owned and
Assets only.
operated
Right.
facility.
Okay. Any words there? I think.
it's different. I don't see how we have like this, we have a 6-year plan embedded into a 20-year look ahead.
Sure.
And I'm missing 14 years. That's me.
No,
But that's how it's operating, so,
I mean, I have to see it in operation, I guess.
yeah.
Well, I can't speak on SIP very well, because you were the guys that lived and breathed it when you're doing all that work, but that's strictly county, right?
County.
Yeah.
But we've got different entities here, like public utility districts. And in water, you have group water, you have individual well, same, and you know all this.
Yeah.
But to me, it's like, I agree, I prefer to be one area, like, we have growth here. How does it affect them all, the same growth? And how do they affect each other? That's what I'm struggling with.
I'm fine combining them if, as long as we can address the capital facilities, okay, then I'm cool with this.
When you're doing the CIP, does that, I mean, it takes into account the anticipated growth in the next 6 years, right? Or is that? Or is it monthly,
We
like,
have not got to that level
Yeah.
of detail, so when the SIP comes, it's, so it comes every year, so largely, I mean, frankly, my focus is, coming up will be FY 26 and 27. What's coming in the execution year, 26,
okay.
what's +1, and then we have 4 future years beyond that gives us ideas, but things change,
I see.
okay? But my expectation is we're getting into the execution year +1. Those are things that, staff has been typically working for some years, maybe not a total of 6, but for some years. These are things that are more refined, more immediate, more of true need. And so we see those things come up. And then even in execution years, there's some movement based on need, on opportunity. There's a great transportation example that Public Works executed here with the Board of Commissioner approval.
Good, because I remember you had like pages of stuff. It seems like
That's
that,
more like a book.
whatever,
Yes.
but. This is basically operational as opposed to,
Yeah, we're at the strategic level and you're down at more
Right.
practical like.
so it's like, these are things that really need to have in place now or very soon. That's, am I getting that right? As opposed to, we think this is what we might need over the next 20 years.
So this is a 6-year look ahead
Okay,
and that's it. And we've seen things move out beyond the city, something that was in year 4, 5, or 6, and for different reasons got pushed to the right and fell outside of the 6-year window. We've seen other things pulled back in and execution that way.
it sounds like it's very specific items that need to be done.
Yeah. Brian, you have thoughts on combining them?
I mean.
Yeah, I guess for me, combining would be okay, but, actually, no, I did like what I heard saying, keep the building and the utilities separate. I heard that.
Yes, and that I think has been pushed back by staff with, it's sort of either keep them as is or combine them. The sort of a little bit of both is staff is not recommending that, and the other board members are not recommending that. So.
And workshops, we don't do motions, right?
No.
Or do we? Doesn't know. Okay.
We're just looking for direction.
Yeah, so I think the
Yeah.
recommendation from the PAC is combine them.
Sure.
Then so the understanding that we are in draft state, that SCJ is waiting for a number of inputs from some of the service providers. Any general comments on the primary text, the bulk of it prior to going into goals and policies?
I got a couple.
Okay.
I'll try to keep it to a couple.
All right,
Um,
I'll follow you.
okay. And this goes to PUD 3. In the material we're presenting PUD 3 stuff, it appears to me there's a conflict because you're talking about how things are funded one way, developer funded, But in another way, you're talking about building things and looking for grants and looking, it seems like there's a conflict, there's developer. Contributed, infrastructure to building things, and then there's other decisions that look like they're. Like, you make a judgment call and decide to go and build, a substation. And to me, it seems like we gotta get that lined up, so people, developers and others know, which way things are going. And believe me, PUD is not the only one. Loretta and I had the discussion between Belfair and Allen as far as like sewer. There seems to be a difference in how, extensions are done between how they're done in Belfair versus Allen. Or at least that's my perception. And you've heard it a couple of times from me, so.
I'd be happy to talk with you about that in great detail or in general comments here. I'm looking at William to give some direction.
I would prefer to take that offline.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with that.
Jeff, you know my phone number?
Yeah, I know your
Send me an
phone.
email, give me a call. I will go through all of it in,
Yeah, that's kind of how it goes with it.
please.
Yeah, no,
Happy to.
yeah. The other thing is that. If this, I'll leave it to 2 more points. One point is, it seems like a lot of times when I look at paragraphs in this document, we start off, I look at a paragraph and whatever you start with is a subject, and yet we have like 3 or 4 different subjects in a paragraph. That needs to be addressed generically throughout the document. Another big piece is, remember, this is to kind of get an inventory, a capacity, and what your, what forecasts or things like this. So to me, things that are dealing with environmental, climate, all those kind of things, while they're important and have a place, I'm not sure that place is in this chapter it was in this document. Or we need to lay out some things differently. I think there's a place for them. But to me, if you start the way this element starts out, it's basically we're trying to figure out generically, in my mind, executive summary wise, what do we have? What's our capacity to serve? And basically, you need a common denominator like ERUs or something, equivalent residential units or something, and then, working with what the county proposed as the population growth over the next 20 years, is that utility able to support that or not? And where's the shortcomings where they have to go funding and where all that goes? Again, at an executive summary, not at a nitty-gritty detail, big picture. I'll leave it at that.
Right, Brian?
That's sort of what I was trying to get at, like, I got some information from Sheila from PUD a couple of months ago. And they do a map, they have very specific information on where they think growth is and what they're gonna do. I'm just hoping we can sort of combine all the different entities that are kind of consistent, which maybe they're not, maybe it's like the unified theory of everything, maybe it's not possible to do that. I think we're on the same thought pattern.
I guess along, I would say also that within each of the utilities, while each one's different, power, water, all these different. To me, we should set up the structure in this document so that you're kind of looking at the same things repetitively through each layer, so you got it, whether it's. And I don't have a point here that I can describe it, but to me, it's like the things that are included in one PUD, as an example, should be included in another PUD. If one water system, one major water system, i.e. like Belfair Water versus Lakeland, Belfair, Allen or Shelton, UJ or what have you, that same way of looking and putting the criteria together, and again, the executive summary should be similar in structure.
It's like PD based on their forecasts or information. This is where we see growth, therefore this is where we're gonna put it, say a substation or whatever.
Right.
So how does it affect the other utilities there, are they on board with those assumptions? If they do put it in there, they have some reason for planning that.
Right.
Is that consistent with everything else that, water, sewer, whatever? Yeah, I agree. That's why I think it's good we're combining those. I think it'll make it facilitate doing something like that kind of a analyses or whatever.
Yeah. I think, and. Yes, Mark.
So Jeff, I feel like you're specifically talking about urban growth areas, right? So. If PUD3 says, hey, we need to upgrade a substation to serve this rural area.
Right.
Well, you're not gonna have the large capacity water system and sewer systems that usually serve those rural areas, correct? So what you're looking for is some consistency within the urban growth areas where you're defining population growth and how each utility would accommodate that?
That'd be priority one in my mind.
I think some of the challenges we're gonna have is that. The plan. Is that we're looking to reduce sprawl. Provide growth in the UGA. Have more focused public utilities. Part of that challenge, and I know you and I have talked about this for over a year, okay? Is that the reality is that the growth isn't necessarily occurring within the UGAs. That greater sprawl is occurring, but that's where people are making their own decisions on their own land rights. Versus what the plan is, and there's, short of mandating and basically. Preventing growth on someone's personal property, and I am not in any way, shape, or form advocating that. Okay, there's little we can do, so we've made an assumption that growth is in the UGAs within. I think in most of the utilities, I think we can fairly easy look at what is today's demand, what is today's capacity, what is future demand going to be based on growth. Again, we're assuming it's going to come, and then from there we can say, does that future demand meet, projected capacity somewhere in the future, recognizing there may be some growth. And for electric, for natural gas, for sewer, those probably work pretty well. Possibly for telecommunications, internet. Water's a little different because it's more complicated and we have more service providers. And I think one of the things that I'm seeing is as I talk to different people, and to your point, Randy, I would love it if we could get everyone to say, here's the groups of assumptions, and we're going to use one format to present the information. That's not going to happen. And I think it would be great from an analysis prospect, but I think we need to fleet ourselves up another 10,000 feet and take a much larger view of this and not get down to the granular level as much as many of us might like to do that. Okay.
And when I say this, again, I'm not after the nitty gritty, I'm really after.
Yeah.
But I still think a similar setup
Can you
between.
maybe share a screen, please?
A similar approach of documenting through all the different utilities can be done. At an executive summary level. I don't mean nitty gritty, but I'm saying at a 10,000, 30,000 foot level. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Let me see if I can share.
But how do you know it's 30,000? I mean, it's made up of the bottom tier.
But for example, take Alan. We can very quickly figure out how much water capacity is in there with existing systems. We can see what's being used, so to speak, and what they have permit to do. We can look at the water rights and we can get that one figured out. To me, all the utilities are the same. I mean, when I say that, I mean, they're just as hard one as the other. And they're not that hard once you sit down and grind through it. It's just opening the data and then going after it. And I don't know, that's just how I'm wired for them.
With water, there's more providers.
There's more providers, yeah.
That's the issue.
Plus with water, you can't dig in the ground and pick up electricity, whereas you can do that with water.
You do have, well, even with
Maybe,
the idea of water rights,
in
you got other
general, yeah,
considerations.
I get all.
So my overarching comments are, number one, I agree with Jeff, you know, like when I read PUD and PUD 1 and PUD 3, they're both electrical providers. The PUD 3 has significantly more data, particularly talking about greenhouse gas emissions, some of the climate change elements in PUD 1. And so when I finished reading it, the question I walked away with was, what's PUD 1 doing about this entire topic that took a page for PUD in the PUD 3 write-up? It's sort of like the right, you know, the two electrical systems need to have similar data. If one is significantly talking about a topic and the other one is simply blank, it begs the question, what's up? So that's one, I would say that those I think need to be aligned, and that's by utility system. Not every one, you know, it's going to vary by types of utilities, and some like natural gas is pretty simple with one provider. But the electrical really stood out to me as simply they read differently. That's one. Number two is, and this is this. Here's what I think, and this is one example. There are many ways to do this, okay? But basically, who's the provider? What's the capacity today in 2025? What's the demand in 2025? What do we think the demand's going to be in 2045? Do we have, you know, excessive or we have a deficit in capacity? Recognizing that, I'm not going to go over because I'll break my, that very likely we're gonna have deficits if we're gonna go add, you know, 20% of the population. But we also very likely have people already thinking 10, 20 years down the road, and they likely have plans. I mean, Justin, I can sort of look at him and, yeah, he's already, and his team is already sort of thinking forward to say, what if?
Right.
You know, the sewer plants in Belfair and North Bay, the same way. If once we get to a certain capacity, then we open another cell or another piece of the puzzle there to provide more capacity. And I think for electric, natural gas, sewer, relatively simple.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
anything that flows like.
And probably, again, UDAs. And I recognize that PUD 3 and PUD 1 handle a lot more than just the UGAs. And somehow those service providers, I'm looking at you, Justin, are somehow going to have to figure that out to communicate that. But I'm confident you can do it. But something like this, because once you're on that far right-hand column, depending upon, hey, do we have excess capacity or do we have deficit 20 years in the future? And knowing what they're thinking, we sort of can go, you know, stoplight charter, green, yellow, red. Green, we're good to go. Yellow, we got some work. Red, we have a deficit and no plan at all, no ideas at all. You know, recognizing a plan doesn't necessarily come with funding at this time. That would be my comment. The other would be, and I'm going to piggyback on Jeff. I think we strip all the climate change, particularly the greenhouse gas, out of this at this time. And they say that for two reasons. Greenhouse gas specifically is not required by this county at this time by the state. Okay. Number two is I really want to see, I think putting all that largely in climate change, and once we understand what that potential scope is, what are we talking about? What are the potential impacts, the scenarios, the postulated events that we're going to be dealing with? Then we can come back and re-add things back in, you know, if appropriate. I mean, I just don't know what to expect right now. That's my 2 cents.
I agree.
Okay.
Say something just real quick. I still like to argue for granular. It ain't that granular. It ain't rocket science. But I somehow it doesn't sit with me. Oh, it's just this overall thing. If you don't know the pieces of it. My first boss told me it's easier to scramble eggs than to unscramble them. So if you have the, you know, for example, PUD, we plan to put a substation in a non-UGA area. Well, they have information that leads them to do that kind of planning. Well, how does that affect the other things? That's all I'm saying.
So you don't like that recommendation? The table, I'm trying to understand, you're looking for more detail.
He's going back to the other.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I just think you need some
He's
underlying.
going back to where originally he thought I was more granular,
Mhm.
and I was saying it more as a summary, but he was saying more granular in the approach.
Which leads up to the summary.
Yeah,
Now, you don't get ridiculous like.
yeah, no, but I think most of the electric sewer, because it has a scope boundary. Natural gas, one provider, and we saw the map, limited area, okay? No big,
Yeah,
but
no,
it bounded, okay, those are fairly straightforward. Water's a different beast. A lot of, I mean, how many water systems now?
Don't say.
Yeah, no, and that's where it gets more complicated. Okay.
well, that's just me.
Yeah.
It's like the other day, I didn't,
If I may, folks, what I'd like to, if there's something else on this that's good, if not, I'd like to jump over to the goals and the policies piece.
One last thing, also, this deals with just the structure of the document. Is that we need to keep writing this more from it. To me, this comp plan, this element, utilities, needs to be written more neutral. Unless there's parts of it come up, like there's a bias in different areas. And to me,
Bias won't line.
more a bias in finance, a bias in growth and different things. And all I'm saying is, it's not a marketing plan, it's really stating how things are. What the intent is, and how does our 20-year plan, work that out? And so to me, there's like motive words, there's like phrases. You know what I'm saying? And all I'm saying is it needs to be written more, in my mind, more technical, more engineering like. And not to be dry like engineering, but
Thank you.
but I'm saying there's. I'm trying to
Okay.
say,
I've captured some words here,
okay,
so,
okay.
okay.
And by the way, if you need some of my remarks, they're not public.
Well, I know Mariah's back there writing away too, and she does a fantastic job of capturing this.
Okay, that's it.
She does. So, we're down to, if I can figure out how to I'd like to share my computer, not just one screen at a time.
so that's a quick question while we're waiting. You're talking about the natural gas, and then the initiative that said, no, we don't want to kill natural gas. But I heard a judge reverse that. I mean, how's all that going to affect what natural gas is doing in Mason County? That's my question.
It's beyond our pay grade. It's beyond our pay grade.
Yeah, I think we need to. Well, on a similar note, how do you deal with, I mean, we have a 25% increase in people, 26%. We have a 10% projected decrease in electrical while we're adding electric cars, taking out natural gas and killing wood stoves. I think we need to sit back and, because I would love to see that map, by the way, but I think we can't guess what's going to happen by our legislatures. And I was talking with a couple of folks, at least one's present in the room here today, had a good couple hour discussion, and not a PAC member, somebody else, and no one up there either. And but part of the discussion was simply an acknowledgement that we have a very different sitting president than we did 9 months ago. Some very different perspectives from a federal level. We have differing, a greater majority down in Olympia with our majority party. And we're watching those types of potential conflicts occur in New York and other places, and what's coming to Washington, what might that mean? I agree with you, a great discussion, but I would say that's outside of our scope.
I don't disagree. I just wanted to throw out the question.
Yeah, no, I agree.
That's all.
So.
Because we don't know.
The county's on hold, so we're not changing anything in our code. We're waiting to get the final decision on that, correct, Cal?
When are they expecting that?
Later.
After, I don't know how long the appeal takes. to
Okay.
go through.
But for our purposes, just assume things are,
We're just not changing what we
We don't really
originally
know.
planned to change, which was modifying.
Yeah,
the
no, no.
code related.
Okay. Got it, thanks.
So,
Before we get too far into this, you guys have about 10 minutes left on the 45 minutes that was scheduled. So, want to push that out or? No, you wanted to do
I
the bulk
would,
of
I would be
conversation on
open
this.
to entertaining like a 30-minute extension if you're open to that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that, do I hear a motion?
Okay, I'll make a motion.
Do I hear a second?
30 minutes.
I'll second the motion to extend the meeting 30 minutes.
Does that include a
But not
5
the
minute
meeting, the discussion on this.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. With that, let's take a 5-minute break at this time. So we'll pause the recording, no discussion of the PAC items. We'll come back here at 7:36 from.
3 times the sign.
Brad, Randy?
Yeah. 8 times more meters.
All right. So. What I'd like to do is I'm gonna, this here is, what I'm projecting right now are the, goals. And so the way, SCJ has initially developed this is they have goals, policies, and then strategies. We can do anything we want. Okay, so if we want to say, no, we don't want it, we'll just take a policy, make it a strategy, vice versa, we can do that. The last comp plan was blank. If I say anything inaccurate, please correct me. Okay. And so what staff has asked us to do is really focus our efforts on, are these sort of the goals and policies following the same format we've used in other elements? Is this what we want to see? Is this the advice we would give our commissioners? So I have my comments embedded in this, and I'm trying to hide those to not taint anyone one way or another. Well, no, I think it's important
No, it
that
is.
we try and stay, that everyone has an opportunity to put their opinion before somebody else, dominates this. So I'm trying to not do that.
Well, we open it up now?
Absolutely.
One of the things I don't see in here is in the goal are this idea that that we know, we've heard of a long time ago in Hollywood, it's called build it and they will come. How do we incentivize this utility infrastructure to get built so that we can attract developers to come in and build where we want them to build? We want them to incentivize to build in the UGA areas. Seems to me that we should be developing this infrastructure. We know the population's coming. We've got it all, all the data's there. 16,000 residents in the next 20 years. So shouldn't we be, incentivizing this infrastructure ahead of this and then steering it in the directions we want it to go? If that requires grant money to, to get the funding necessary to build it. Shouldn't that be in the goals and policies here? If they're there and I didn't see them, then let me know.
Okay, I've captured the idea. So I sort of said to build it, they will come, advocate for federal and state funding to publicly fund utilities.
And that would be all,
Yeah.
Why across the board?
I have it unbounded at this time.
Roads, whatever.
Okay. Yeah, and I like the way you started this, Mike, is sort of this sort of open brainstorming and I haven't figured out how show all my things at once. I'm capturing this and then I'll show everyone what I've captured and we can edit it live. What else?
No, that's it for this. I mean, the other question, I was just looking at this water, the percolation of water in the ground. 65 inches of rain, or like 22 inches, I think is into the groundwater table. And I know we brought this up about a year ago about somebody, I think one of the public comments was, are we doing water quality testing? Anywhere. So if someone, if we're gonna develop a new water system. And they're gonna, I assume that's gonna come from a groundwater well. It's not a desalinization plant. So is that water quality good? If there's 22 inches of drain fields going into our aquifers per acre, how many gallons, that's a lot of acre feet of water.
And that's a lot.
And it is, I don't know. I didn't test my well.
I tested mine.
Okay, I've captured some words.
And I bring that up because I'm from the San Joaquin Valley in California, and we had like 6 inches of rain here. But with all the irrigation on the agricultural crops over the last 50 years, that groundwater was so polluted. Yeah, it was terrible.
Okay. Yeah. Brad, any ideas?
As you look back at the last goals and policies that the SCJ wrote. And they just had goals, policies, and
Yeah.
no strategies.
No, and I think we take the strategies and we just, I would say, throw them up into the policies if they're even appropriate. Some of them are really detailed, but we'll work through that. Anything that,
Yeah, I think that's a noble goal. And maybe it's implied, the county itself has no little control over, like say, electricity and some of the other stuff.
yeah, okay.
We can encourage.
I should have gone to original market or so. Yeah, so I actually, I changed, they use the word ensure we have capacity, and I said, no, put monitoring there. I'm the perfect.
Monitor's okay.
Well, monitor's what we can do. We can't direct.
Yeah.
A utility provider unless it's us, the county, we can't direct them to go do something.
That was my point.
Yeah. Okay. Let me go, I want original markup.
Sorry to do that to you.
No, you're good catch. I gotta figure out what written. It's not in there. I'm gonna have to simply go to all markup. My apologies, it's gonna be a little messy, but we'll work through it. So we have one goal is slightly rewritten, monitor the utility infrastructure, compare demand versus capacity and future capacity. Another goal is enhance the utility service quality through collaboration with service providers to eliminate deficiencies in obsolete facilities. Obviously, the lead in there, I took out the climate impacts that was based upon my comment earlier, sort of reflecting what Jeff had to. That's an overarching goal they had. Variety of strategies. Another goal, safeguard the quality and quantity of groundwater. Talking, I think, Mike, directly to what you have here. They have groundwater, surface water. I think somewhere in here they talk about the absorption. One of these has basically minimized impervious surfaces to maximize the absorption of rainwater to recharge the aquifers. They have and their affordable utilities. No, got one more. No, I That's it. Are there other goals?
No, there is, but the problem is, I came down to the document originally, more trying to organize it. Not. The one thing I'll say on my, on the goals, big picture wise, is should these goals be laid out the way they are as they are here, or should they be more laid out as the different utilities? Because the goals of PAD, there's general goals for infrastructure, for utilities, but then there's more specific goals by utility type. Should these goals be, in other words, if we split out all the different groups, and now we're gonna combine all the goals into like, looks like into one.
What is the county's role in this? No, I'm not necessarily ready to tell that man over there.
No.
His electrical system. That's his role.
Then, and, okay, so then why are we putting a goal here at all?
Well.
I mean, I'm being facetious.
Okay,
about it,
but let's take the first one. I think the first one is very appropriate. I think that first goal, I believe, is the sole purpose of this element. To monitor the different systems, understand their capacities, understand current and future demand, and ask the question, can we grow to that future demand? Because if not, we may have to, thoughtfully say, no, you can't build somewhere. And that obviously is not the objective we're trying to achieve. And we have, again, where do we want the building to go? We have that defined.
I understand the point. Says no. Okay, got it.
Yeah, you can see some of my edits. I tried to take words of ensure or provide, the words that are more absolute.
Yeah.
I tried to remove unless I was confident that that's something we would want to recommend to the board to commit the county to. And I'm not. I just don't know. That's why I said, hey, I think we can monitor infrastructure. I think we ought to review and update as needed the development ordinances and regulations to require timely development of utility service to meet growing community. Okay. And, new one, review, new development plans with utility providers to ensure developers and utility providers align. So if, we have, I understand, is it 249 homes, Loretta, up on top of Romance Hill going in?
Well, there's a pre-application.
Yeah, there's a pre-app to
about
put
what
development up
requirements
there.
might-
I'm assuming that developer has talked to potential utility providers, and if not, then that's something we should, in that process, just ensure those communications are occurring. Okay.
No argument. I kind of got hung up going one way, just kind of documents laid out and.
This greenhouse gas one, I said, I have comments throughout of, stick this, after we get the climate change and figure it out. That's going to be an interesting debate. That's going to be a spirited discussion here. So number 3, I'm going to look at our utility provider. Number 3 is encourage electric lines to be underground. That takes a little longer.
Yeah, sorry, Randy, I don't wanna.
No,
you have to.
I thought you had left, you're the expert in the room.
I am, yeah, so, when it comes time to new developments and new distribution that gets installed, it's almost always underground. The long feeder lines, really work better overhead, they can handle more capacity, tapping off them is much easier, for sure. There's a lot of lines out there now, and so going through an undergrounding them, we always look for opportunities, but that is extremely costly. Mason County doesn't have great dirt to be digging in, Sometimes county right of way isn't very large in rural areas. That poses some challenges as well. So I kind of fear that we're sort of stuck with the overhead distribution. I will say that 60% of our lines are currently underground, 40% are above ground. Some people may not realize that. We actually have more lines underground. And then I heard Mark say, you're right, it does take longer to fix them when there's a problem. And of course, they're less susceptible to storms and things like that. So there's a trade-off. PUD 3 does use what's called tree wire, and so our wire has an extra covering on it, makes it more resistant to damage by trees that come down. If branches go face to face, it doesn't cause an outage, those types of things. So we have built the system knowing the kind of system that we've built.
I wish some of our public members hadn't left, just so they could hear that. Because as they were talking, it's like, I know you guys do some of the very stuff they were discussing.
Yeah, we can always do better. I mean,
Yeah, so
to their-
number 3 then, I think reads pretty good. Encourage new electrical distributions underground.
Well, and also like in Allen, the zoning code's actually written that if somebody's developing more than 200 feet, especially like in the plat, we put in the zoning to put it underground.
Good.
And I've done it myself. So I paid the people to do it, so.
So let me ask this is, as I sat around over the last couple of days and looked at this, I sort of struggled with, what is it that we as a county can do with regards to utilities? And I really like number 1, what do we have? What's coming? What's the capacity? Do we have enough capacity? Those sort of questions, recognizing most of the stuff we don't own. The county don't own. I sort of struggle with, what is it in here that we're gonna have as a big.
Well, this, another way to go at this, too, is like this 9.4, 9.4.3. This the whole protection of the natural resources, a whole bunch of stuff we've done in other areas. I mean, do we even need those in there?
I don't. You have a hand up? Speak,
Okay.
jump in at any time,
Thank you,
please, Loretta.
thank you.
We're a much smaller crowd in here, you're both. I'm a treat you as staff, if you will, okay, you're both utility providers and this is utility, so please jump in.
I guess the way I interpreted this goal and policy and strategy section is more like, what are our utility level of service standards? When I think of level of service, I think about good financial stewardship. I think of good environmental stewardship. I think of meeting permit compliance.
Quality service, quality water.
Yeah, I think of how many outages are acceptable. And that's not just power, it's like water,
Sure.
are you out of water
Yeah.
service? So it gets to me to like, okay, well, where's our level of service standards for utilities, number 1? And then to me, these are kind of a form of those level of service standards. So I do like some statement about environmental stewardship. It's part of all of our utility missions. And it doesn't need to go into great detail, because
No,
I
I get that.
completely agree with you, Will, that we talk about that in more detail elsewhere.
That's my point of view, but I have no problem. But I mean, I understand what you're saying.
I just put it as an idea, we'll come to this later, but develop all these service utilities, I don't know. It's an idea. I personally don't have a problem with these first three. They're protect groundwater, encourage the use of public water and wastewater systems where feasible, support efforts for failing on-site sewage. I mean, we should be doing those things already.
Right.
Yeah. I do believe, and we would have to consult with public health, and we certainly would have to consult with our commissioners too, that, public health could likely maybe use some more enforcement officers. We do have some issues out there. And folks, I do have to give you a heads up. I'm down to 15% on my battery, so something's gonna die here pretty quick.
No, you're gonna run out of time or your battery's gonna die. Either way, we're good.
Well, get out your,
20
Well,
minutes.
get out your cord then.
Well, I didn't bring one.
Will this fit?
Let's not go.
No.
Mine's at 100%, this is an HP.
This is a Mac.
Of course.
Let me, let me jump over to a different screen here real quick. So, what I've captured, this is what we're talking about tonight. We say, okay, combine capital facilities and utilities, one element. Some overarching comments is focused on capacity demand, and I'll say shortfalls, but basically the delta between future demand and what we have as capacity, or easily expandable capacity, relative terms with like sewer systems. At this time, remove the climate change elements till we step through next week, and particularly stuff that happens in May, and then globally look at the comp plan and figure out what to do with that one. Write more neutral, non-biased comments, and particularly we have seen a lot of the climate change throughout. And that's just something we're gonna have to, once we get through climate change, globally look at all the elements.
Right.
Policies, sort of a build it if they will come, and therefore have the advocacy that, the county will help and support utility providers in supporting for federal or state funding for potential growth needs. We might want to verify groundwater quality, and that might ties in nicely with some of the other suggestions we've had over time of groundwater studies. Peggy Morell has brought that up a couple of times. And then lastly, this develop levels of service. And I don't know how difficult that is or isn't. And
We do have a charge level of service, like that, in the public utilities chapter, so the consultant is supposed to be working on
okay.
bringing that one.
And with utilities, will that come into, will that be coordinated with the utility providers? Okay. I see Mark's holding the gavel there, is that?
Oh, I was playing with it.
Okay.
It's still well. Reading once upon a time.
One of our students recommended I get a gavel.
Oh.
Yeah, and I said, well, one is like Thor's hammer, ka-thunk. So, no, all right, so I've saved this in case.
Again, getting back to verified groundwater quality, that's already being done quite extensively by DOH, ODW.
I expect so.
So-
There's ground monitoring throughout, and I know
Yes.
the tribes and others are very focused on that and protecting groundwater and how that recharges, how that influences our marine waters. There's a lot out there. Okay. So I'll still have, all right. So, so the groundwater. Yeah, those three sort of look okay. Does anyone have anything new in particular? Because that's where I struggle, because I look at a lot of this, and I'm like, it's sort of generic.
Right, that's,
Yeah,
I mean, I took an hour this afternoon, after refocusing and just went at it and was like, well, nothing comes up new. I mean, my mind keeps going to projects or things like that. That's not where we're going.
yeah. And
Yes.
But it should be where we're going.
Well, the
Right.
capital facilities. plan,
Absolutely.
Not comprehensive plan.
Oh, yeah, yes.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, so this is the level up. And then, once we start to see the growth. So we start to, you know, hey, we're at 80% capacity on the whatever cells up in Belfair. Now we start looking, opening a couple more cells for more sewage.
Right.
You know, what those steps are as we get there. The affordable utility access. Is this something we want to suggest to the board? Or is this something we want to?
Well, I don't know if the PD has it or, you know, some counties and stuff have, you know, like citizens groups to look at rates. I don't, you know,
Is that our county's role
I don't
to
know.
get involved in? I mean, certainly. There, what, 3 sewer systems, water systems,
Yeah, right.
absolutely. I think solid waste.
We do it now.
You go through electrical and everyone now.
We go through the utilities that we provide.
they provide that.
PUD does it because they actually have programs in place for individuals. But within our rate structures, if you listen to our discussions with commissioners about how do we set the rates, we're looking at that affordability index. And saying we want to keep it under a 2 or 2.5% of an individual's the affordability index for that area.
Yeah, I
And then-
think,
Oh, I'm sorry.
don't go.
And certain utilities also have to go to the UTC for the
Right.
rate setting, so there's a whole structure and an evaluation.
For sure.
Basically, they're pulling your books on
Yes.
everything.
So
and
like
determining.
Lakeland Village, because they're private,
Yes.
and because they're over 100 connections, they go to UTC. And that's where their rates are drove from.
Yes,
I think where this is headed. If there are those homes that have 50% of the area mean income, so their household income for the year is, you know, $35,000 to
Right.
$40,000.
Right.
How do you provide sewer at 2.5% of that number? Not necessarily the AMI, but half the AMI. It's that lower bandwidth, that lower economic band, I think where this is headed.
Do you guys have programs for that, Justin?
We do,
Yeah, no, I know.
So we do, you know, beat inflation. It's kind of our goal on the rates. And we do a lot of benchmarking along amongst other utilities, including those that have their rates set by the UTC. PUDs are not subject to that, but we do lean into that, of course. But a lot of the additions that we put into our comments had to do with our low income program. The concept of evaluating energy burden, so the household income as compared to energy costs, whether that's electricity or gas for that matter, and then providing assistance based on that as one of our main tiers. So we are pretty thorough on that, and our comments, you know, speak to that, maybe too much, but
Well, when you have your cost offset for those who are. Who, you know, so you give a break to, you know. These homes because of the situation they're in, who covers that delta?
We do.
all of the other ratepayers.
We pay it.
And that's what I just wanted to hear.
Yep,
Yeah,
so,
you said a
so we actually, so some utilities just bury that in their rates. We actually put a separate line item on everybody's bill. We're paying, all of us are paying about $5, under $5, like $4.85 or something this month. As a flat rate to cover those low income programs. Unfunded mandates, so that's how we chose to do it.
I've obviously stopped sharing with them before. I'm just sharing. Yeah, and that's where, so when we look at. When we look at our housing need. We're saying that, you know, 4 out of 10 homes. Based upon the HAP results. Are 50% AMI and lower. And so do we want to, for those 4 out of 10 new homes coming into this county, provide or suggest a lower rate structure across the spectrum of utilities or selected utilities? And then burden the 6 out of 10 on the other side. My concern is you know, that $5 may be a larger number if you start talking those sort of terms very broadly. And, you know, I've done no math. I'm just sitting here sort of publicly discussing this and saying, this is my concern, is that how many of those folks that are then just above that 50% mark or somewhere around 70% of AMI or even AMI. But, you know, once we start adding, well, there's $5 here on the water bill, on and the electric bill and sewer bill, and that's 5 is really 10, and what about all the add-ons? And I'm not sitting here with a good answer, but is there an unintended consequence when helping one group, we create a problem for another group, only to have the second group join the first group? That's my concern.
Well, it's possible. Definitely
It's
possible.
So that's, I think the difference, Will, is that the electric utilities are required by law to do it anyways.
Correct.
Water and sewer utilities, we do not do that.
I understand that, but as I read that goal as drafted, and I'm asking the board members here, is this something that we need, and obviously we have 2 other members that will come back and join us in a future discussion. Is this something we would want to recommend to the 3 individuals sitting up there on the stage? Or is that something we believe is in the best interest of our county? And I struggle with that. You know, again, and I would love to have the numbers. We're not gonna have those.
Right.
You know, so as we start to think about that affordability, if it's a very broad open statement, it could be read in many ways. Or does it need to be scaled to something more specific? Or does it need to just be left silent and not discussed at all? And, you know, that doesn't mean it doesn't come before the county, again, dealing with county utilities, to where, you know, folks consider that, but it's not necessarily something that, you know, we would suggest go in the comprehensive plan. Again, our suggestion is just that it's advice. Board of Commissioners, well, first, staff can also advise the Board of Commissioners. And the Board of Commissioners can make their own decision. We are merely one voice of many into this, and public will have the opportunity. We go through a public hearing process with this. We also will have, the public will have an opportunity to comment directly to the commissioners in the approval process. My question to you is this whole affordability, how?
I think it'd be good to, I still will go affordability for everybody, but I don't think we should try to get to specifics, if that's your question.
Yeah, well, I'm just wondering.
Some people subsidize others, and I will do that kind of thing out.
I remember being at the county hosted a discussion on sewer bills up at the high school here a year ago. And one of the very specific, and I don't remember who, Mark was there and others were there, and I don't remember who discussed it. I want to paint it on my commissioner, but he discussed exactly what Mark just said, is that, you know, there actually may have been, Loretta, you may have been talking about, whoever is briefing the slides, but in their slide deck was that affordability of trying to keep the sewer price below, you know, 2.5% of that monthly income or whatever the number was. And it was a very thoughtful process that, you know, the county staff used and brought to our commissioners for their consideration. You know, and so, but 2.5% varies if you're only if I make half of what you do, 2.5% is a different hard number. But if they're using the average, I only have half of average, I still get 2.5% of the average number as my bill. That's the issue.
And I'm sure that was a very thoughtful process, very well thought through, like we've seen, but do we want to get that specific in the comp plan? I mean, do we really want to define?
Go up, I think, is the answer.
Well, do we really want to define affordability in the comp plan? Because that can change.
No.
Yeah, if we did it, it would be okay probably to have it as a goal, but not a policy.
But yeah,
made up on a slippery slope and then everybody wants their.
I'd be real hesitant on numbers just
Right.
because sewer and water and electric and there's a lot, and I don't know if that's something we want to do.
Right, I don't think
We're
we-
out of time.
6 minutes.
Figured we were close. All right,
Keep it as broad and general as possible.
other thoughts, any other guidance we would want to give SCJ and or staff at this time? And Loretta, Justin, Cal, anyone? Being you, Commissioner, anyone? Any thoughts out there? What are we missing? Is there a big gap out there that the gentleman at the table that we have just blanked on?
Just a lot of rewriting. And holes to fill in particular, just bringing the whole utility, at least from the solid waste, water and
Right.
sewer utilities that the county owns and operates.
But again,
Needs the revamp.
you know, I've stated this a dozen times, that I'm not, you know, personally, I'm not looking for detail, real big detail.
No, I know, I think I know exactly what you're
An
looking for.
executive summary of,
Just simple.
you know, a few pages, it may take, you know, for Richard to do a, you know, spreadsheet and, you know, might be a little more elaborate, but, you know.
Well, frankly, I think what we presented during the outreach for the rates is perfect.
Right.
We have so many customers, we have so much
Yeah, right.
capacity, our operating budget is X. and-
Yeah.
And if we open another cell, our capacity becomes,
Exactly.
you know, and,
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
would,
that would be nice, though.
yeah, and
Do you really want us to talk about capacity of? So, I mean, I could define capacity for our Belfair sewer in a number of different ways.
Absolutely. Our conveyance.
So how do you guys
our
want us to,
treatment,
how are you guys recommending that we define capacity?
Well, yeah, and it's even trickier than I think where you're going. You have some parts of the UGA which are easier to give capacity to, and other parts of the UGA they're not. So to say like at the Belfair UGA, you have capacity X. It works maybe around Olympic Ridge, but it doesn't work, you know, like near River Hill.
So now you're getting down into even more
Yeah.
level of detail
Yeah.
associated with capacity of a transmission
Right,
line, right?
right.
So that I would say stay clear of that.
yes,
I got it.
agreed.
I got it.
Yeah.
I think you just got I think, first of all, we don't have it yet. So, the way I'm wired is. If you get something that's reasonably accurate on the table, that's more than we've had in the past. And if you say like Belfair, you know, its existing capacity is 800 ERUs with, you know, this, it'll be this. I don't think you go, you know, a lot more detail.
So,
Because there's just too many ways that wiggles. You know, as far as what conveyance lines are, what have you.
so I understand, right, Mark, it's like, I think of Belfair, so first we have, you know, a set of, as I understand it, cells operating today. And they're operating, you know, somewhat minimally, they're not even at 80%, and there's one or two more sets of cells. And then from there, the sewage goes to the pond, and from the pond, it's pumped out to the spray field, but and talking to Richard, you know, Richard and Loretta, and we sat down hour and a half, 2 hours here a year ago. And we talked the Belfair and North Bay systems. And, you know, as Richard described, he goes, well, sewage isn't sewage. If we implement a whole bunch of water efficient fixtures, you have basically, instead of a glass of wine, you have a shot of, you know, a shot of Jack out there, because it's simply more dense, you know, is more hard liquor sewage, if you will, and as opposed to something a little more diluted. And so all that affects plant operation, and there is no absolute answer. But you go, well, is the limiting factor the cells? Is it the pond? Is it the spray field? You know, and I understand the spray field may actually be an issue out there if we get enough volume and if it's enough water and other stuff in it.
I would
You know?
say that the capacity of the Belfair sewer plant is 1 million gallons a day.
Right.
'Cause that's the biggest part of it, right?
Yeah.
That's what it was
Well,
designed.
no,
for, 1 million
and
gallons a day.
I say,
So I can add filters and bladders and I can add to a spray field, but the main components of that system designed for 1 million gallons a day. So I can, if you ask me what the capacity is, 1 million gallons. a day.
that's what I would do. And recognize that in that is, you know. Look, Loretta, you and Richard, as far as I'm concerned, make the call. That's totally a staff issue. I'm directing nothing, okay? But I would look at you as the expert to say, you know, explain what you're doing. You know, I have a lot of confidence in two of you and your team. Just make the call. And yeah, if it's 1 million a day, it's 1 million a day. If that. And we go from there, and then we turn that out to ERUs or whatever we need to figure out what our, bottom line is. If we grow out Belfair to the growth we expect, do we need another plant or an extension of the plant is a real question. And again, that assumes everyone goes on it.
Well, their plan, Belfair's plan right now with the EAS is basically 2,200 from 2022, as I recall. In that ballpark roughly, when you use 2.5 people per house and all that kind of thing. So the question is, can you handle another, 2,200?
They'll answer that. So,
And technically, the way Belfair's been, it's like around 160 gallons per ERU, right? So then you just do the math and say,
Or less.
Yeah.
Actually,
145,
less,
135.
oh, it's down to 135,
Yeah,
okay.
but you
But
have to design.
No, you get, I know.
But yeah.
Don't design right to the edge, no, oh, crap.
But yes,
That's where it
that
gets
is- that-
fun, yeah.
that is-
Folks, we are now at our time limit plus 2 minutes. Do we need to continue this for a longer time period? Well, okay, not quite 2 minutes. You're just hitting a bell or whatever.
No, it actually did
Good.
run out.
Well, good, then we timed it about right. Are there any other discussions for tonight? I have none.
I'll make the motion to adjourn. That's what you're asking.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.